kind of idea. Well, I don't think it's a fringe wingnut idea to try to take away more of the federal government and return that responsibility, return those rights back to the states and back to the people in those states. That's one of the things that we see in our Constitution is, we hold the rights. We hold the rights, and that we've only given certain rights to the federal government. And that the rights that we haven't given the federal government, we ourselves hold, or the states themselves. And that's something that they've forgotten. And we need to remind them of that this November. We need to tell them it's time that we take back what's ours. It's time that we take back this Congress, and that we take a hold of our future. And the last thing I want to say before opening it up to the question and answers is that voting for a libertarian is not going to be a wasted vote. I know there are a lot of people who are concerned about that, and they feel that the only way to really affect change is to vote for a Republican or a Democrat, that there's anything else is going to throw away your vote. Well, keep in mind, the Republican Party used to be a third party at one time. They came out of the Whig Party. They were a startup from the Whig Party that had fallen apart over the issue of slavery. You had ones that were going to the Democratic Party and ones that were forming the Republican Party. The Republicans haven't always been around. And so it's untrue that a third-party candidate can't ever win in Congress, because it used to happen. The thing is, we're seeing a new paradigm shift. We're seeing a move away from the old way of thinking, the old mindset within the political establishment. And we're seeing a lot of people who are wanting to try to really push off in a new direction back to the fundamentals that started this country. And I and many other third-party candidates represent that kind of view, because we're working outside the political establishment, because none of us are in office right now. And that, I'm not going to vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker of the House when I get up to Congress. I'm probably not going to vote for whoever the Republicans put up either, but I'm certainly not going to vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. And that as a libertarian, I'll be in a position to actually have a lot more influence than a freshman congressman as a Republican or as a Democrat, because I'm going to be able to choose whoever it is that I want to caucus with. There are some issues that I'm going to caucus with on the Republican side. There are some issues I'm going to caucus with on the Democratic side. But that on those issues that are within a vote or two of whether they're going to pass or not, instead of me having to go and tell people, I'll vote for this if you'll help me out with this, I'm going to have people come to me saying, Tim, what do we need to do to earn your vote to get this passed? And ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that they're going to have to prove to me more than anything else is that whatever they're wanting to do is going to reduce the scope and size of the federal government, return our rights back to the people, and possibly even kind of, cut some of those people out of jobs and bring them home a little earlier than they would like, because they've just been up there for far too long. They've been up there for 20, 30, sometimes even 40 years, and we need to bring them home. Gene Taylor's been up there for 21 years this October. And I'll tell you, I'd love to be in a job for 21 years, but I don't want to be in that job for 21 years. I'm going up there for 6 years max, and I'm running, as part of my platform, to institute term limits. I know it's going to have to be a constitutional amendment that's going to get it done, but you have to start somewhere on getting that process going. You have to get people who are honest and hardworking about actually doing what's right for their constituents. And putting in term limits is one of those things that would really help out a lot of us. Because yes, you're going to lose a lot of the people who've been up there for a long time, who've gotten a lot of experience, serving themselves before their constituents. But you're going to have the seniority system flipped on its head, and people up there who are doing the jobs that they're doing on the committees and in the Congress because they don't have to be up there for their whole lives. They're only able to go up there for a few years. And that they're going up there to get the job done and come back home. And I'm pushing for 6 years maximum for representatives, so 3 terms max, and 12 years maximum, or 2 terms, for senators. To keep the imbalance there, because the Senate and the House have different jobs. But that we finally put a cap on how long these people can stay up there and say, no more. You go up there, you do your job, you come home, you let somebody else go up there. No more of this cronyism and corruption that allows us to see this Congress get to the point that it's gotten. You know, we're talking about, you know, a lame duck session coming into effect here, but a lot of these ones wouldn't have even had that opportunity had we had term limits in place. And that's not my entire platform, but that's one of the things I think is key to getting a lot of the corruption and out of control spending and everything else that's going on in Congress back into control, back into our hands instead of in the hands of an out of control and completely out of control government. I'll open it up to questions now if anybody wants to ask.
I think, to me, a lot of us are here probably because of the destruction of Glass-Steagall in '99, which to me let the bankers take over our whole economy. And I want to know what your feelings are on reinstating back Glass-Steagall, where we can take our country back financially.
I actually looked into it a little bit more after I'd gone to the meeting that you'd spoken at, David. And I don't know how many of y'all know, but I've got a degree in international business, so I've gone through a little of this in school. They don't teach it as much as they need to by any means, but the thing that David's talking about, it's a law that ended up bringing down the barriers between the banks and the insurance companies and allowed them to be able to basically make money off of their own risk to a point where we were able to see the subprime mortgage mess and all the other things that have really made our economy just fall into a slump. And one of the things that would really help is to reinstate that barrier again, put that wall up so that banks can't profit off of their own risk to a point where it ends up putting every single one of us at risk. Because the reason why our government even had to think about doing a bailout for the banks was because of companies like AIG and Wachovia and these other ones that were able to create these credit default swaps that, I mean, it just really, it's just amazing when you think about it, because the credit default swap says that if the mortgage fails, we pay out money to you for that mortgage. Well, what ends up happening then is you're saying, well, if we lose all that money that we put in that mortgage, we'll pay out even more money to you, this holder of the credit default swap, so that you're losing sometimes twice the value of the mortgage. Well, that's good for the people who have those credit default swaps and who end up getting to cash in on them, but it's horrible for those banks, because then those banks are going under easily. One of the things that just absolutely amazed me was finding out that we've got, I think it's like $50 trillion, is it, in credit default swaps that are out there on the market right now? I mean, you think $4 trillion just within the past few years, past several months even, in our debt growing in our federal government. If you think that's bad, just think about the credit default swap bubble that's going on right now that's just waiting to burst. $50 trillion of credit default swaps that these banks would have to pay out that they don't have the money to. And that's one of the things that needs to be changed. And putting those barriers back up again would help to get away from that, because you wouldn't be able to issue those kind of risky loans anymore, because that's what it is, it's a loan. You're basically saying, we're going to, for this money that you've paid us, we'll pay you back. So really it's not even a loan, it's more like a stock option, where if it expires, you're not going to be able to cash in on it, but if it matures because that loan goes under, you'll be able to get that money out. And I think we really need to do something about that. Glass-Steagall would really help to get that fixed again.